Hello, and welcome to Non-Inkables. This is part 4 of our comprehensive rule guide. Check out part 1 through 3 if you haven't yet. We're going through all of the comprehensive rules so that hopefully we don't get a game loss or disqualification or rule shark something called on us because we know what the rules are. All right, so this will go over part 5 and 6 of the comprehensive rule guide. So part 5 is card, and then part 6 is card types. So very similar topics. Also, part 5 is pretty short. So part 5, cards. 5.1 is conditions. So there is 5.1.1. Ready. Cards enter play ready. So they are like this, not like this. Ready. A player can't use any of the exerted cards' abilities, and that includes cards that have that little hexagon with the arrow, which means exert as part of the cost. 5.1.2 is exerted. When a card is exerted, it's turned sideways. So ready, exerted. A player can use an exerted card's abilities that don't require that little exert, that don't have that little symbol, the hexagon with the arrow, as part of the cost. 5.1.3, damaged. A card that has at least 1 damage is considered damage. And 5.1.4, undamaged. A card that has no damage is considered undamaged, right? Makes sense, just English definitions. So on to part 6, which is card types. 6.1 is characters. 6.1.1, characters are a type of card that can be in play. A character card that's in the play zone is a character, and in all other zones, it's a character card. I think this is just like definitions for the rules. So basically, if it's in the play zone, it's just a character, and if it's anywhere else, it's a character card. So once it goes into the play zone, it becomes a character, and it's no longer a character card in terms of what the rules reference, right? So 6.1.2, cards don't list character on their classification line. A card needs to have both characteristics outlined in 6.1.2.1 and 6.1.2.2 to be a character. If not, the card isn't a character. So the classification line is the section that is underneath the colored bar that says what the character name is, and it is above that like tan part, which has the abilities or the flavor text. And so it'll usually say like Storyborn, Dreamborn, or Floodborn, and then it'll have any other classification. So character cards do not say character there, but they have to have these 2 things. So the first thing is the character has to have a strength value and a willpower value. So they have to have the little thing that's in the sun symbol and the one that's in the shield. So for example, location cards don't have strength, so they don't have that strength value, so they're not a character, obviously. And then like items, songs, actions also don't have either one, so they're not characters. The second thing a character card has to have is has to have at least one of the following listed on the classification line. So alien, ally, broom, captain, deity, detective, dragon, dreamborn, entangled, fairy, floodborn, hero, hyena, inventor, king, knight, madrigal, mentor, musketeer, pirate, prince, princess, puppy, queen, racer, robot, seven dwarf, sorcerer, storyborn, tigger, titan, and villain. So I assume this is probably a part that may get updated in the future if they add future classifications for characters. So those are the 2 characteristics that characters need to be considered a character. 6.1.3, only characters can quest or challenge. And 6.1.4, a character must have been in play at the beginning of the set step of their player's turn in order to quest, challenge, or exert as part of a cost. So that's like that little symbol thing. So if they were in play already at the beginning of the set step, that means you played them the last turn, which means this turn they are dry. So any characters you play this turn were not present in play at the beginning of the set step, and so therefore are not dry, and you can't use them. Here, the comprehensive rule skips a little bit. So there's 6.2, and it goes over the parts of a card. So, and then it kind of comes back to the other card types. So parts of a card, 6.2.1, most parts of a card appear on all card types. Specific differences are noted in the entry for the relevant card type. 6.2.2, art. The art isn't used for gameplay, so nothing in the art affects what happens in the game. And the parts of the card that they list are cost. Number 1 is cost and inkwell, so that's in the top left-hand corner, and it tells you how much it costs and whether or not the card is inkable. Number 2 is the name, which is in that colored section. It also has the version, which is like the classification. So you have like Goofy Daredevil, you have like Stitch Rockstar versus Stitch Carefree Surfer. So that like little designation like Carefree Surfer or Rockstar, that is the version. 4, you have the classification. So that's like the Storyborn, Dreamborn, blah, 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 blah. Then you have Strength, which is in the little shields, the little sun icon. And then Willpower, which is in the little shield icon. 7 is abilities and effects. So that has all their like special abilities. And then like below that, there is usually flavor text. And then 8 is the lore value. 6.2.3 ink type. The ink type of a card identified by the ink type symbol. The colored bar behind the card's name reflects the associated color. A card's ink type is important for building a deck and may be referenced in card rules. So there are 6 ink colors in Lorcana: amber, which is yellow, amethyst, purple, emerald green, ruby red, sapphire blue, and steel gray. And so those are the 6 ink colors. 6.2.4 is name. The name of the card appears in larger print. So that is like Elsa, Mickey Mouse, that's the name. An effect that looks for a card or character with a specified name looks only at this line and ignores the version. So for example, there is, I believe, a Diablo card that is like, if you have a Maleficent in play, you can draw an extra card. So it's only looking at that first line. It's like any Maleficent, doesn't matter the version. So it doesn't matter if you have like Maleficent Biding Her Time or Maleficent Sorceress, doesn't matter. Also applies to cards like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. Oh no, that's a cost one. Maybe Hades, Double Dealer. So he lets you like exchange a card for a card of the same name, and that is the part. The name part is just that big part. The second part of this 6.2.4 is the whole character or location name must be the same as the specified name to be a match. A character's or location's name and version together constitutes its full name. So in the example I gave before, Maleficent Biding Her Time, the full name is Maleficent Biding Her Time. The name is just Maleficent. And they give 2 examples here. So example A, Tinkerbell, Peter Pan's ally, has an ability called Loyal and Devoted that reads, your character's name Peter Pan gain Challenger +1. They get +1 strength while challenging. And here you can see an example of what they talked about in the general rules. There is italicized text. And as a reminder, the italicized text is just a reminder to you what Challenger means. It isn't like a rule. And it says, if you have Peter Pan, Fearless Fighter, and Peter Pan, Neverland Hero in play with this Tinkerbell, she gives both versions of Peter Pan Challenger +1. The other example is example B, the Sorcerer's Hat is an item with an activated ability that lets you name a card, then reveal the top card of your deck and put that card in your hand if it is the card you named. If you use Sorcerer's Hat to look for a card named Lucky and then reveal Lucky Dime, that is not a match. You do not get to put that in your hand. However, if you use Sorcerer's Hat and you name the card Magic Broom, it doesn't matter what version of Magic Broom it is, you get to put that in your hand. Another card that does this is Bruno. Bruno Madrigal, you can name a card, and if it's the correct card, you get to put it in your hand and you get lore. And so I've seen this played in puppy decks where every single card is Dalmatian puppy, basically. But you could also play it in a broom deck where most of your cards are Magic Broom. In this subsection part for name, there is 6.2.4.1. It says, some characters have 2 names. These characters have an ampersand, so the fancy and sign, between the 2 names listed on the name line. If an effect looks for a card or character with a specified name, the specified name only needs to match one of the 2 on the character. And then 6.2.4.2, a character with multiple names is still a single character. So their example is Flotsam and Jetsam is a character that has 2 names. So this was a card that was like a promo for the DLCs. This card is both a character named Flotsam and a character named Jetsam in all zones where the card would normally have 1 name. The names are separated by an ampersand and denote that this character has 2 names. So another example of, besides Flotsam and Jetsam, I think would be Chip and Dale. And I think that's probably, I don't think there are any other duo cards, I suppose would be the name of it. Okay, next section, 6.2.5 is version. A card's version differentiates the card with the same name. A character or location's name and version together constitute its full name. So we talked about before how you can have 4 cards with the same, up to 4 cards of the same full name. So that would be the name plus the version name. And so that is how you can have multiple Maleficents in your deck, but they're different versions. 6.2.6 Classifications, categories that identify some characteristics of the card and may be referenced in card rules. For example, Hades, King of Olympus, has an ability that references cards with the villain classification. It reads, this character gets +1 lore for each other villain character you have in play. And so you'd have to look at that classifications line to see if it's a villain. 6.2.7 Card cost, the amount of ink needed to play the card. So that is in that first part we talked about. So that top left corner, the number there is the ink costs. So how much ink is needed to play that card. 6.2.8 Inkwell symbol. So that is what surrounds that number. If it is a swirl icon, which is the official name, swirl icon is presented around the card cost, the card can be put into the player's inkwell. Cards in the inkwell are referred to as ink. Each card counts as 1 ink. Obviously, if it's not the swirl and it's just the hexagon, so our logo, you cannot put it into the inkwell normally. 6.2.9 Strength, primarily how much damage this character deals in a challenge, though card effects can also reference this value. Strength only appears in characters. If a character would deal damage equal to its strength and it has 0 or less strength, it deals no damage. So strength is specifically referenced, I think, in red cards, red removal cards. So for example, Brawl can brawl anything with strength 2 or less. Medusa can banish anything 3 or less. I guess it's also technically referred to by like Cloud Kicker. He can bounce anything that's 2 strength or less. 6.2.10 is willpower. Damage on a character is persistent, which means it accumulates over the course of the game. If a character has damage equal or higher than its willpower, they are banished as a required action. Of note, as a required action is a blue, so that means it's newly added. Card effects can also reference this value. So I think like Rapunzel's Tower increases willpower, and so it is a location card that references the willpower of character cards. 6.2.11 is lore value, how much lore the player gains with his character quests. The appearance of the lore value symbol may vary on some cards, for example, enchanted or promo cards, but these variations don't affect gameplay. 6.2.12 abilities, any ability the card has appears here. Some abilities can have a cost to use them. Abilities can be keywords, see section 10, or have a story name, which is used for referencing the ability, but otherwise isn't used for gameplay. So for example, they use like the Elsa Snow Queen card. It has the ability freeze, and you can exert the card, exert chosen opposing character. And so for, in this case, freeze would be the name of the ability, but it doesn't like necessarily mean anything. It's just a name, so you don't have to say like the whole thing every time, you know. Okay, next we have flavor text, and that is usually like it's under a line. Sometimes it looks like a book, and that means it came from the original source material. Sometimes it looks like a pen, which means that the creators of Lorcana wrote it. I guess not the creators, like the people who are making the cards. It's a new thing. It's not from the original source. And then sometimes it looks like a treble clef, and that means it is a song lyric. 6.2.14 says ancillary information, and ancillary information isn't used for gameplay. So this can include artist name, the artist who illustrated the card, collector number. This indicates where the card appears in the set. The number of unique standard cards in the set appears after a slash. So for example, if a card says 3/204, that means there are 204 standard unique cards in that set, and this is card number 3. 6.2.14.3, this is set number, what set the card came from. So set 1, first chapter, set 2, Rise of Floodborn, 3, Inklands, etc. 6.2.14.4 is language, the language the card is in. So the English cards all say EN, and then it'll have a dash and it'll say what set number it's from. The French cards have FR. I think Italian has IT. Chinese has ZH. Don't know why it's ZH. Japanese have JP, etc. 6.2.14.5 is legal text, and that is just copyright information. And then 6.2.14.6 is rarity symbol, indicates how common the card is among the cards in the set it was printed on. And so in the rarities, we have common cards, uncommon cards, rare, super rare, legendary, enchanted, and promo cards. In a standard pack of Lorcana cards, you would get 6 common cards, 1 of each ink color. I think you get 3 uncommon cards, and then you get 2 of rare and above, so either rare, super rare, or legendary, and then you get a foil at the end that could be any rarity. And then enchanted cards, some say it's like one per case. For American cards, I think the current idea for the Asian cards is that you get two per case. However, those cases hold way more boxes. So, for example, like the the English cards, you get 4 boxes per case, and each box has 24 packs of 12 cards each. The like Chinese and Japanese ones, you get, I think, 15. Yeah, I'm gonna say 15 boxes per case, and each box has 10 packs of 12 cards each. So do the math. I don't know. I don't want to do the math right now. Anyways, moving on. 6.3, actions. So another card type, actions. 6.3.1, actions are a type of card that can be played but can't be in play. An action is an action while being played. Otherwise, it's an action card. 6.3.1.1, an action is defined as an action by having that on the card's classification line. 6.3.1.2, actions are played from the player's hand, but they are not considered in play. An effect from an action doesn't enter the bag. So I think this is important to remember. So things that get triggered or that are like usually like on other character cards or maybe on location cards or items, those are things that go into the bag. But in action, you play it, you do it immediately, and then it gets banished. So it doesn't go to the bag. It just skips that whole thing. 6.3.2, effects. Actions have effects rather than abilities. So just clarification on the words that we use. So if something happens and it's on a character card, so for example, like when you play a rabbit, you may draw a card. That is the ability of the rabbit card. If you draw a card from playing like Friends on the Other Side, which is an action, that's an effect. 6.3.3, songs. Songs are actions that have a special rule in addition to the normal rules for actions. So a song is defined as having action and song on the card's classification line. So all songs are actions, but not all actions are songs. And all songs allow the player to pay an alternate cost instead of the ink cost to play them. Being a song means instead of paying the ink cost of this card, you can exert one of your characters in play with ink cost N or greater to play this card for free. This is called singing the song. So as long as your character is cost as much ink as it would normally cost you to play the song with ink, you can have that character exert to sing it. Obviously, if you have a character that has the special ability of singer, they can sing more expensive songs than what they actually cost, and it'll specify how expensive they can go. So for example, Ariel, Spectacular Singer, costs 3. So normally she would only be able to sing a song that was 3 cost or less. Because she has singer, that ability, she's singer 5, she can sing songs that are up to 5 ink cost. 6.3.3.4, some songs also have the keyword sing together, which functions similarly to the special rule. And then in section 10, they will go over sing together. But essentially, you can have multiple characters exert at the same time to play a song. And then you calculate all of their costs to pay for the total cost of that sing together song. So sing together songs tend to be more expensive, like 6 cost or more. Examples would be like Pirate's Life, Dig a Little Deeper, Under the Sea. Those cost like 8. And so usually you don't have an 8 cost character, but you could use multiple of your littler, smaller characters to pay that cost. 6.3.3.5, the standard reminder text for a song is a character with cost N or more can exert to sing the song for free. And then 6.3.4, any effect that's triggered because of an action being played is placed in the bag and will resolve after the effects of the action are fully resolved. So basically, you play an action, that does its thing, and then it gets banished. And then if something triggers because of that action, then that thing that triggered goes in the bag. So for example, if you had a Maui Shark on board and you play an action, you finish your action, do whatever that action says, and then the Maui trigger, which is when you play an action, you get a lore, that would have gone in the bag. And once you're done with your action, you can take it out of the bag and do that ability. All right, so that is it for actions. Next is 6.4, which is items. 6.4.1, items are a type of card that can be in play. An item is an item only when in the play zone. In other zones, it's called an item card. So pretty standard, I think, for all the things in this section. 6.4.2, an item is defined as having an item on its card's classification line. So you know it's an item because it says item on it. 6.4.3, if an item has an ability, that ability can be used the turn the item is played. So the item doesn't have to dry or anything. So you can play an ice block, immediately use the ice block, that kind of thing. Next one is location, 6.5. So the card is a little bit different. All the location cards are horizontal in orientation versus all the other cards are vertical. And so the cost and inkwell, instead of being in the left corner, are technically in the right corner. Although if you just turn all the location cards vertically, it's back into the left corner. So the location cards will have the cost inkwell cost. It'll have the classification and like that color bar is still the same, has the name, the version, and then underneath it has classification, which says location. On the right-hand side, it'll have the willpower, so it's in that shield. On the left-hand side, it'll have a move cost. So it's like a little hexagon with like additional triangles on the bottom. And that's how much it costs to move into that location. And then you have like the abilities and effects in the same section. You have the lore value, etc. So 6.5.1, locations are a type of card that can be in play. A location is a location when in the play zone, and all the other zones, it's a location card. 6.5.2, classification. A location is defined as having location on the card classification line. Locations are the only card type that is printed in landscape, i.e. with longer sides on the top and bottom, or horizontal orientation, or hamburger style, I guess. 6.5.3, cost. A location cost is in a different place on the card than the cost of the other cards, but it works in the same way. 6.5.4, move cost. A location has a move cost. This is the amount of ink needed to move a character to this location. 6.5.5, willpower. So they have the additional language of damage on a location is persistent, which means it accumulates over the course of the game. That's new. It's in blue. If a location has damage equal to or higher than its willpower, it is managed as a required action. Note that locations don't have a strength characteristic and don't deal damage. 6.5.6, lore value. A location may have a lore value, which is how much lore the player gains at the start of their turn during the set step. So remember, at the beginning of your turn, you have ready, set, draw. So during the set step is where you would get your location lore. 6.5.7, abilities. If a location has an ability, that ability can be used during the turn the location is played. So for example, like Jolly Roger has the ability pirates move here for free, and so you can play the Jolly Roger and then immediately move all your pirates there. Same thing for like Sherwood Forest. All the Robin Hoods can move there for free. So nothing with location has to dry. And that is it for section 5 and 6. This is part 4 of our comprehensive rules, and we only have 3 more sections to go, but I feel like they're the most complicated sections. So that is it for this video. Check out all the other parts of this going through the comprehensive rules, and as always, keep shuffling, and hopefully you don't end up with a whole handful of non-inkables like me. All right, bye.